Welcome to Craving the Heat, where desire takes the lead and every story leaves you wanting more. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments and keep up with our latest naughty stories. It was the first time I was truly alone in years. My name is Rachel, and for as long as I could remember, I had always been the center of my family. I had spent most of my adult life raising my daughter, Emma, and managing a home. For 18 years, my world revolved around making sure she had everything she needed: food, shelter, love, and stability. When Emma graduated high school and decided to move out for college, I thought it would be a relief. Finally, I could take some time for myself, but it was different. The house felt emptier, quieter, and I couldn't quite shake the feeling that something was missing. Emma was no longer around, and the silence of the house seemed to amplify that emptiness. I didn't know how to fill the void. My life had always been intertwined with her, and now there was an unfamiliar stillness. It wasn't long before Emma's boyfriend, Jake, started coming around more. Jake had been in Emma's life for the past few years, and I'd always seen him as a good, kind young man. I had gotten to know him during family gatherings, and I admired the way he treated Emma with respect. He was always polite, easygoing, and seemed to be the perfect match for her. But as the weeks passed, and with Emma now living at college, Jake began to visit me more frequently. At first, I thought it was just out of habit, or maybe he was just lonely without Emma. But one evening, after a particularly long week, I received a message from Jake. ***. Hey Rachel, are you free for a cup of tea? I'm in the area and I thought I could keep you company for a bit. ***. I hesitated for a moment. I had been feeling the emptiness of the house, and the idea of some company, even if it was just Jake, seemed comforting. It had been a while since I had a conversation with anyone outside of work. I invited him over. When he arrived, I was surprised at how much I enjoyed his company. We sat in the kitchen talking about life, about his college plans, and even about my life as I adjusted to being an empty nester. It felt natural. The conversation flowed easily, and for the first time in weeks, I felt connected to another person. I hadn't realized how much I had craved that as the evening wore on. I couldn't help but notice how Jake had started to look at me differently. It wasn't an obvious look, nothing inappropriate, but his gaze lingered just a little longer than it had before. He smiled at me in a way that was warmer than usual, and I found myself smiling back. I couldn't understand why, but something was shifting between us. The next few weeks followed in a similar pattern. Jake continued to come over, and I started looking forward to our time together. We would talk for hours, share stories, and laugh. There was something comforting about his presence, something that soothed the loneliness I had been feeling. I didn't expect to develop such a connection with him. After all, he was my daughter's boyfriend, and I had no intention of complicating things. But the more we spent time together, the more I began to realize just how much I valued his company. One evening, after another long conversation, Jake stayed a little later than usual. The house was dark, and it was just the two of us in the quiet space. We had been talking about relationships, love, and what it meant to connect with someone. I had shared my thoughts on how difficult it was to be alone after so many years of being a mother. Jake listened, really listened, and his understanding made me feel like I was being seen for the first time in a long time. It was then that I felt a strange shift. As he sat across from me, there was an intensity in his eyes, a connection that wasn't just friendly. I could feel my heart race as I realized that I was no longer seeing Jake just as Emma's boyfriend. The boundary that had always kept him at arm's length seemed to be slipping away. "Rachel," Jake said softly, his voice low, "I know we've been through a lot of late-night conversations, but I have to say something. I care about you more than just as Emma's mom. You've been a source of comfort to me. I know it's complicated, but I've started to feel things for you, and I can't pretend I don't anymore." I froze, my mind reeling. The words hit me hard, and I wasn't sure how to respond. This wasn't something I had expected. I had spent the last few months processing the fact that I was alone, but I never once imagined that Jake, Emma's boyfriend, the person I thought of as a son, could be someone I could feel something more for. I stared at him, unsure of what to say. The silence stretched between us, and I could feel my heart pounding. The attraction was undeniable, but it felt wrong, too. I had raised Emma to value honesty, respect, and loyalty, and here I was, questioning everything I believed in. Jake reached out, placing his hand gently on mine. The warmth of his touch sent a shock through my body, and for the first time in months, I felt alive. I wanted to pull away to remind myself of the boundaries, of the way things were supposed to be. But I couldn't. His hand felt so comforting. So right. I don't want to complicate things, Rachel, he whispered, his face close to mine. I just ... I just want you to know how much you mean to me. The next moments felt like a blur. We were leaning in, and before I could stop myself, I kissed him. The kiss was soft at first, tentative, but it deepened quickly, filled with passion and longing. Everything about it felt so real, so raw, and I couldn't deny the connection. But as the kiss continued, I felt a pang of guilt. I pulled away, breathless, and looked at him with wide eyes. What are we doing? I asked, my voice shaky. Jake seemed to hesitate as well, his eyes searching mine. I don't know, he admitted softly, but I can't ignore this. I care about you, Rachel. I really do. I stood up quickly, my heart pounding in my chest. This wasn't supposed to happen. He was Emma's boyfriend, and I was her mother. This was wrong on so many levels. The guilt and confusion crashed over me like a wave. Jake, this isn't right, I whispered, shaking my head. This can't happen. He didn't argue. He just nodded, standing up slowly. I understand, he said quietly. I'm sorry, Rachel. I never meant for it to get this far. He left soon after, and I was left in the silence of the house, my mind spinning. I couldn't understand what had just happened. I had kissed my daughter's boyfriend, and in doing so, I had crossed a line that I could never uncross. It felt like I had betrayed everything Emma, myself, my family. But at the same time, I couldn't deny the feelings that had sparked between Jake and me. The next few days were a whirlwind. I tried to avoid Jake, but the tension between us was undeniable. I felt guilt for what had happened, but I also couldn't ignore the bond we had formed. It was clear that something had shifted between us, something that neither of us could deny. In the weeks that followed, things remained complicated. Jake and I both knew that we couldn't act on our feelings, but it was hard to forget the moments we had shared. I loved my daughter, and I couldn't bear the thought of hurting her. But at the same time, I couldn't ignore the connection I felt with Jake, and so I found myself at a crossroads. I didn't know what the future would hold or how this situation would unfold. But one thing was clear. I was no longer the woman I had been before. I'd experienced love, longing, and connection in a way I hadn't known was possible, and now I had to figure out what that meant for me and my family. The future was uncertain, but for the first time in a long time, I felt alive. The days that followed were filled with internal turmoil. I couldn't stop replaying the events that had transpired between Jake and me. Each time I closed my eyes, I could feel the warmth of his lips, the softness of his touch, and the intensity of the connection we shared. But every time I allowed myself to think about it, the guilt would resurface, smothering the excitement and emotions I had felt in those moments. I avoided Jake for a while, telling myself it was for the best. I needed time to process everything. I had to figure out how to move forward without ruining the life I'd left, without destroying my relationship with Emma. But no matter how hard I tried to push him out of my mind, I couldn't stop thinking about him. The more I thought about Jake, the more I realized how much I missed the connection we had. There was something about him that made me feel seen, something that I'd been missing for so long. I decided to meet him one evening. I couldn't keep running away from what had happened between us. I needed closure, whether it meant confronting my feelings or finally putting this all behind me. I called Jake and asked him to meet me at our local cafe, a neutral place where we could talk. When I arrived, Jake was already sitting at a table by the window. He stood up when he saw me, his eyes soft, yet guarded. The tension between us was palpable, and I could feel my heart race as I sat down across from him. The silence stretched between us for a moment before he spoke. "Rachel, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have crossed that line with you," Jake said, his voice low. "I never meant for it to happen, and I regret that it did. But I can't pretend like I don't have feelings for you. I care about you more than I should." His words hit me like a punch to the gut. It felt like I was hearing the truth of everything I had been avoiding. I looked at him, trying to find the right words, but they wouldn't come. I couldn't deny that I had feelings for him too, but I also couldn't ignore the consequences of what we had done. "I care about you too, Jake," I whispered, my voice shaking. "But this is so wrong. You're Emma's boyfriend, and I'm her mother. We've crossed a line that we can't undo." Jake looked down at his hands, his fingers nervously fidgeting with a napkin in front of him. I know it's complicated, but I can't help how I feel. I wish things were different. I wish we could just be honest about this, but I understand why we can't." I let out a shaky breath, struggling to keep my emotions in check. "You don't understand, Jake. This isn't just about feelings. There's so much more at stake here. Emma's my daughter. I've spent my whole life trying to protect her, and now I've done something that could destroy everything. I can't live with that." There was a pause, and I could see the pain in his eyes, the same pain I was feeling. "I don't want to hurt you or her." "I never wanted this to happen," he said quietly. "But I can't keep pretending that I don't have these feelings for you. I care about you deeply, Rachel." I felt my heart ache. I wanted to give in, to let myself be with Jake, to feel the way I did when we were together. But I knew that it wasn't right. I couldn't tear apart my family like this. I couldn't betray Emma, the one person who trusted me above everyone else. "I'm sorry, Jake," I whispered, tears filling my eyes. We can't." Jake looked at me for a long moment, as if weighing his options, his gaze never leaving mine. "I understand," he said finally, his voice soft. "I just want you to know that I'm here. I'll always be here for you, Rachel. No matter what happens, I care about you." I nodded, my heart breaking as I stood up to leave. "I care about you too, but we have to move on from this. We can't let this ruin everything." We said our goodbyes in silence, and I walked out of the cafe, my heart heavy. As I made my way home, the weight of the situation pressed down on me. I had let myself get caught up in something I never should have. But now I had to find a way to put it behind me. The next few weeks were difficult. Jake and I avoided each other, the space between us growing wider with every passing day. I threw myself into work, into anything that would keep me from thinking about him. But no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't forget him. The connection we shared was too strong, and it left a hole in my heart that I wasn't sure how to fill. It wasn't long before Emma came home for the weekend. She could tell something was off between us, and I knew she could sense the tension. One evening, after dinner, she sat down with me in the living room, her eyes full of concern. "Mom, what's going on with you and Jake? You've been so distant lately. Is everything okay?" I froze, not sure how to respond. I had never wanted to hurt Emma, never wanted her to feel like she wasn't my priority. But the truth was, I didn't know how to explain everything that had happened between Jake and me. I didn't know how to make her understand. "Emma," I started, my voice trembling, "there's something I need to tell you, and I don't know how you're going to feel about it. But I need to be honest with you." She looked at me, her brow furrowing. "What do you mean, Mom?" I took a deep breath, my hands shaking as I looked down at the floor. "Jake and we made a mistake. We crossed a line, and I need you to know that it's over. Nothing's going to happen between us. I love you, and I'm sorry for anything that I've done to hurt you." There was silence between us for a long moment. Then Emma stood up, her eyes wide, her voice soft. "You kissed Jake?" I nodded slowly, my heart breaking. "Yes, I did. And I'm sorry, Emma, I can't undo it. But I need you to know that it was a mistake. I'm not asking for forgiveness right now, but I want you to know how much I love you. I would never do anything to hurt you on purpose. Emma was quiet for a long time. I could see the pain in her eyes, and it broke me. Finally, she sighed and shook her head. Mom, I don't know what to say. This is so messed up, but I appreciate you being honest with me. I reached out to her, my arms open, but she stepped back. I need time, Mom, she said softly. I need time to process everything. And with that, she left the room. The silence that followed was deafening. I had no idea how to repair the damage I had done, but I knew that it would take time. I had hurt the one person I loved most in the world, and it felt like the weight of that mistake would crush me. But even in the midst of all the pain, I knew one thing was true. I loved Emma with all my heart, and I would spend the rest of my life earning her trust back. As for Jake, I realized that our connection, though real, was something I had to let go of. It wasn't just a fleeting attraction, it was a bond that I had allowed to cloud my judgment. But now I had to move forward, for Emma's sake and for my own. And as I moved forward, one step at a time, I held on to the hope that eventually Emma and I would find our way back to each other, that the love between us, though wounded, could heal with time. The days following my confession to Emma were filled with a heavy, suffocating silence. She had distanced herself, retreating to her room whenever she could, and I could feel the tension in the house every time we crossed paths. I didn't know how to fix things, didn't know how to make it right. I had made a terrible mistake, one that had not only hurt me, but the person I loved most in the world, my daughter. I spent my days in a fog, unable to focus on anything other than the guilt that consumed me. Every time I looked at Emma, I saw the hurt in her eyes, the betrayal that she must have felt, and it tore me apart. I had never intended for any of this to happen. I never wanted to hurt her. But now I had to live with the consequences of my actions. Jake, too, was a presence that weighed on my heart. After our night together, things had shifted. We had both been trying to pretend it hadn't happened, but the reality of what we had hung over us. I could feel the distance between us grow, not just because of the situation, but because the guilt was gnawing at both of us. What had started as a brief moment of connection had become a complicated, tangled mess that I couldn't untangle. I avoided him for days. I didn't want to face him, didn't know how to face him. I needed to focus on my relationship with Emma, on healing the rift between us. But Jake kept texting, calling, asking how I was doing. He told me he missed me, that he didn't want to lose what we had. But what had happened between us, was something I couldn't keep pretending didn't matter. I couldn't keep ignoring the fact that I had betrayed my daughter's trust, and the idea of continuing anything with Jake felt like an act of further betrayal. I couldn't afford to indulge my desires any longer. I had to take responsibility for my actions. One evening, a week after I had come clean to Emma, I found myself sitting on the couch staring at my phone. I had received yet another text from Jake. The words were simple. I'm sorry for everything. I want to be with you, Olivia, but I know that it's not possible now. I understand, but I can't pretend like I don't care about you. His words pierced through me. I knew he cared, but I also knew that I couldn't continue to let my emotions dictate my actions. I had a family, a daughter who needed me. I had to step back, had to put everything I loved first, even if it meant walking away from something that had made me feel alive again. I picked up the phone and sent him a message, my fingers trembling as I typed, Jake, I care about you too, but I need to focus on healing. I've hurt too many people and I can't let this continue. Please, I need space. I need to fix things with Emma. The response came almost immediately. He didn't argue, he didn't fight. He just replied, I understand, Olivia. Take care of yourself. I'll always care about you, but I'll respect your wishes. And that was it. I set my phone down, the weight of the decision settling over me. I knew I had done the right thing, but it didn't make the pain any easier to bear. I'd lost something real, something meaningful, but I had to make this sacrifice for the sake of my daughter, and the future we could still have together. In the days that followed, I focused all my energy on Emma. I tried to give her space, but I also made it clear that I was there whenever she was ready to talk. It wasn't easy. She was still hurt, still angry, and every time she looked at me, I could see the distance between us. But I refused to give up. I knew I had to work to earn her trust again. I had to show her that I was worthy of the love we had shared before. Everything had fallen apart. One evening, after a particularly tense dinner, Emma came to me. She sat beside me on the couch, her body language closed off, but there was a flicker of something in her eyes, something that made me hold my breath. "I've been thinking a lot," she began, her voice hesitant. "And I know I should be. Mad at you. I am mad at you, Mom, but I don't want to lose you. I can't lose you." The words broke my heart. I didn't deserve her forgiveness, but hearing her say that, hearing her admit that she still cared, was a light at the end of the tunnel. "I don't want to lose you either, Emma," I said, my voice breaking. "I've made a huge mistake, and I can't change what I did, but I will do whatever it takes to make it right. I love you so much, and I will always put you first from now on." She looked at me, her eyes full of vulnerability. "I'm not sure how we're going to fix this, but I'm willing to try if you are." "I am," I promised, my heart swelling with emotion. "I am, Emma. We'll figure this out together. I'll make sure you know how much you mean to me every single day." And in that moment, I realized that while the road ahead would be difficult, I had hope. Hope that with time, Emma and I would rebuild our relationship. Hope that I could become the mother she needed again. I didn't hear from Jake for a while after that. There was no contact, no attempts to reach out. It was as if he had stepped back, allowing me to focus on healing with Emma. But in the quiet moments of my life, I still thought about him. I still felt the ache of what we had shared, but I knew I couldn't go back. I couldn't betray my daughter. Again, she needed me, and I needed to be strong for her, for the life we could still have together. As the weeks passed, Emma and I slowly began to heal. The pain of my betrayal didn't disappear overnight, but we were finding our way back to each other. We laughed together again, talked about the future, and shared our hopes and dreams. It was slow, and there were still moments of doubt and fear, but we were moving forward. And as for Jake, I realized that some connections, as real as they felt, were meant to be left behind. I had to accept that what happened between us was part of my past, a chapter I needed to close in order to fully embrace the future with my daughter. The love we had shared, though intense, was not meant to be. And in that realization, I found peace. The journey was far from over, but for the first time in a long time, I felt like I was on the right path, one where my heart, my family, and my future were finally healing. And no matter what happened, I knew that Emma and I would always have each other, and that love, no matter how painful or complicated, was worth fighting for. As the days turned into weeks, the tension that had once suffocated me began to lift. Emma and I were slowly healing, rebuilding the trust that had been fractured. Our conversations were becoming easier again, filled with laughter and shared memories that reminded me of the closeness we once had. She was opening up to me more, and for the first time in months, I felt like I was truly her mother again. It was one evening, when the house was quiet and Emma was out with friends, that I found myself thinking about everything that had happened. The guilt was still there, but it wasn't as overwhelming as it had been before. I had made mistakes, and I knew I couldn't undo them, but I was trying to make things right. I had shown Emma that I was committed to being there for her, putting her first, and that meant everything to me. As I stood in the kitchen, cleaning up after dinner, my phone buzzed with a message. I was surprised to see it was from Jake. I hadn't heard from him in what felt like ages. His message was simple, just a line that made my heart race. "Olivia, I think about you every day. I miss you. Please, let me know when you're ready to talk." I stared at the message for what felt like forever, torn between the past and the future. I knew what I had to do. I couldn't let the past define me any longer. But at that moment, I wasn't sure if I was ready to face the complexity of what had been between us. I had given so much of myself to Jake, but it wasn't the right kind of love. It wasn't the kind of love that filled me up, that made me whole. I turned off my phone and walked out into the living room, sitting on the couch where Emma and I used to spend our evenings together. The quiet of the house was comforting. As I sank into the cushions, I thought about what I had found in the chaos. The love that was growing between Emma and me was the kind of love that I had been longing for. It was real, raw, and full of promise. And as the moments passed, I realized that the love I had with Jake, the passionate, was a fleeting thing, something I had been looking for in all the wrong places. I didn't need Jake to validate me anymore. I had Emma, I had my family, and I had rediscovered the love I thought I had lost forever. It was the love that had been waiting for me all along, the kind that could withstand the tests of time and pain. As the days passed, I focused entirely on Emma, giving her all of my attention, all of my love. We spent more time together, creating new memories, bonding over the little things. Our connection had deepened in ways I hadn't thought possible, and with every day that passed, I felt my heart grow fuller, more whole. I could see the woman Emma was becoming, and I was proud of her. One evening, as I tucked Emma into bed, she hugged me tightly, her eyes shining with gratitude. "I'm so glad we're okay, Mom," she whispered. "I am too," I replied, holding her close. "We've been through a lot, but we're stronger because of it." And as I kissed her goodnight and stepped out of her room, I felt an overwhelming sense of peace wash over me. For the first time in a long time, I knew that I was exactly where I needed to be, surrounded by the love that mattered most. The love between a mother and her daughter was the most powerful, the most enduring. It was the kind of love that could heal anything, that could overcome any obstacle, and for the first time in a long time, I felt completely at peace. Because in the end, the passion I'd been searching for had been right in front of me all along. It wasn't in a fleeting affair or a temporary escape. It was in the quiet, steadfast love I shared with Emma, the love that would carry us both through whatever the future held. And with that, I realized that the most passionate love wasn't always the kind that burned the brightest. It was the kind that endured, that stood the test of time, and that grew stronger with every passing day. It was the love that I had finally found again, and I knew it would be enough.